then there's Atlanta has a 4% upward mobility rate. So if you're born poor in Atlanta, then there's a 96% chance that you'll die poor. So we out here saying we influence everything, and Atlanta's so black that it got, as a city, which makes this a civic municipal issue, it almost has black people problems. So what do they say about us? We look fly, we look cool, we do all this, but if you start checking our bank account, not necessarily under the bed or under the floor, but the actual bank account, that we don't really have no money, that black people spend their money on frivolous stuff and we really don't have nothing.
How's your Friday?
Great.
I just want to say y'all chose a great place to be because it's raining cats and dogs outside and y'all are dry in here, so thank you for staying with us. My name is Jordan Gibbs. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Butler Cookies. I handle all the business development, so that's investor relations, sponsor relations, brand partnerships, and government relations. And I'm a Morehouse grad.
Hey.
Bem. My name is Bem Joiner, co-founder of Atlanta Influences Everything. We are a civic-minded creative consultancy, probably more known for the retail side. We have merchandise that says Atlanta Influences Everything, and we have a storefront on Edgewood, right off of Edgewood, and we just recently opened up a store at the airport, Concourse B9. And I guess I'm kind of Jordan in my company, so I government relations. What else, Sheree? New business and community engagement is my role within my company.
What's going on, everybody? Brandon Butler, founder and CEO of Butter ATL. Butter is a media company that celebrates all things Atlanta culture, the people, places, and things that make Atlanta special, and that's evolved into a number of other things. We just did our big Creators of Color Summit a couple weeks ago. We took over State Farm Arena, the Retreat, Fox Theater, bringing all the creative community together. Also, I'm 1/4 of the 404 Collective. You know, my brother Bem right here, Track Music Museum, and finished first. We also produced 404 Day. So hopefully y'all came out, not the Piedmont Park one though. So we did, we had a parade down Peachtree Street. We have our 404 Fund nonprofit that's raised and given away over $250,000 to like local small businesses, to scholarships and education. It's at the 404 parade. Pickens been doing this now for like almost 6-7 years now. And also have a podcast called Butternomics, the Business of Culture podcast. We interview different entrepreneurs, civic figures, and you can catch me every Friday morning on WSPTV with Fred Blankenship, where I do a segment called The Weekend Pack, talking about all the events happening in Atlanta. So, and we do a bunch of other stuff, but we'll get back later.
Hi, I'm Deasia Page. I'm a music critic and cultural reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my turn. How about it? For those that don't know me, my name is Burks, 25-year record executive. You already know him, director of Cadillac Chronicles as well. I'm happy to be here.
All right, so let's give it up for our panelists. Yay! So we can jump right in. So I'm Chiati Jones. I'm the founder of Social Currency. We're a cultural impact agency that works with artists, entertainers, but also corporations and government agencies on creating impact initiatives that matter. Woo! All right, so for our panelists, my first question is, Atlanta has become one of the most influential cultural capitals in the world. What makes Atlanta such a fertile ground for building a brand, and how has the city shaped your journey? We can start with you, Jordan.
I feel like we should start with Bem because
Atlanta influences everything.
Okay. So, my company wasn't always called Atlanta Influences Everything. We were another company called the Tomorrows. Actually, Ray Daniels and my cousin Nick Love they were one of my partners in this. Our job was to help brands break into the Atlanta market in a bottom-up, authentic manner. We pitched Nike on a proposal dealing with the '96 Olympic trainers that they did a few years ago. They're coming out again, actually. But we didn't get it, and what we found out was that these corporate brands, that they would use Atlanta culture to market products, but that they never connected actually with Atlanta culture. And in my frustration, there were certain things they were holding us accountable to, that New York and LA have, certain infrastructure and cultural things that we hadn't yet had at the time. This was 2015. And so in my frustration of not getting this Nike contract, I said, you know, we don't have certain things like LA, New York, Chicago, but all I can tell you is we influence everything. And my business partner, Ian, he's from Brooklyn, and he didn't agree at first because he's from Brooklyn. And this is where he and Jordan are probably similar. He moved from Brooklyn to go to Morehouse and never went back to Brooklyn.
Moved from Harlem.
Well, I'm from Atlanta, that's it. It's all knickerbockers. Jesus, it's a section. I set myself up for that one. So real quick, we changed the name of Ian just felt like he could go anywhere in the world and say, yo, where Brooklyn at? Or is Brooklyn in the house? And somebody will pop out and like do the little Brooklyn thing. But he said, man, I think the problem with Atlanta is no one knows how to, we know it's a thing and feel it's something, but there's no verbiage. So we should put Atlanta influences everything on the shirt. And what justified the statement of Atlanta influences everything, what allowed us to do that. I'm from here, and I'm a product of former Mayor Maynard Jackson and Shirley Franklin. I'm a product of their policies. So the Atlanta that everybody like is, like, we speak to the big people, but we never talk to the people that were actually raised by the Atlanta way. And so I'm a product of that. And what we realized that there were many others, whether they grew here or flew here for different reasons, that are the reason why Atlanta influences everything. And so we just really wanted to coin a phrase to represent our friends at the end of the day. And not just because they are friends, but as you go here, everybody has a thing that essentially would justify the statement as you hear from everybody else.
Yes, sir. Brandon?
You know, I always say, you know, Atlanta's just a special place because I think it's a place where things are still possible, right? Like the first half of my career, I was in tech, I was in software, and you know, I built a lot of the stuff for a lot of the people that were doing things. I built a lot of the first websites for a lot of the major brands out here, a lot of the big cultural figures, a lot of the first apps for all of them. And so I knew these people. But you know, they used to call me Dark Zuckerberg. You know what I'm saying? I was kind of in the background. But then about, you know, Butler's 8 years old, so you know, about 8, 9 years ago, I kind of had this idea, this belief that the most successful brands need to operate like media companies. And so I always kind of use Red Bull as an example, right? Like you see Red Bull commercials, they're not holding a can of Red Bull, they're showing content and media. And then the idea was like, well, what if we turn that lens on the city? Because as Bem says, you know, Atlanta influences everything. We talk about culture, but I always kind of felt like we had to wait for people to give us permission to talk about our culture. And that always kind of annoyed me. It always annoyed me that we were doing all this cool stuff down here, but we had to wait for somebody in LA, New York, Chicago to come talk to us and be like, so I heard y'all like lemon pepper wings, tell us about it. I heard y'all like, it's like, well, we can tell our own stories. And so that's really where the idea for Butter ATL came from, is the ability for people in Atlanta to tell its own stories and create our own content because we know it better than anybody else. You know, I won't go long, but I'll just say I think one of the things that makes Atlanta special, the way I say it's, the reason why I say it's possible is, I think the manifestation of that is 404 Day. Like 404 Day was kind of an idea, it was a thing, but it wasn't really like a big, I don't want to call it an official thing, but it was a thing that we all recognized. But you know, me and Bem and the guys from Trap Museum and Finish First, we all kind of got together and we said, let's really kind of formalize this thing. And I mean, we all saw what happened even this year, it was huge. But the moment it really kind of steps out to me was, so we do a thing called the 404 Fund Scholarship Gala, where again, we also have like a nonprofit element where we actually give back. So we don't just turn up, we always say we party with a purpose. But I remember we was at the 404 Fund Scholarship Gala, and you know, I'd had a couple drinks and I was feeling good, and I was like, you know what? We're gonna do a party, we're gonna do a parade next year. And the mayor was there, and I mean, he got up on stage, he said, all right, y'all, well, Brandon said we're gonna do a parade, so I guess we're doing a parade. I'm not doing no damn parade. And like, you think about it, right? But literally within a year, we were able to, through our relationships, through our networks, through just doing good work, able to literally mobilize tons of organizations, local organizations, corporate organizations. The city of Atlanta shut down Peachtree Street and literally have almost 3,000 people in the first ever 448 parade going down Peachtree Street. This year we did the second annual 448 parade. We had over 3,500 people walking in the parade. And so I would just say this, like, why is Atlanta special? Because I would argue to say, would that be possible anywhere else in the country? Would you literally within a year be able to shut down the busiest street in New York and get the entire city to come out and mobilize without having to go through all kind of red tape and leaps and bounds? If you were in LA, would you literally be able to shut down the busiest street in LA and have everybody in LA come out and celebrate? And I think, to me, that's like literally the antithesis. That's the definition of why Atlanta is such a special place. Because, and I remember Bem said this as we were kind of wrapping up. He said, you know, don't forget, the city didn't put this on, corporations didn't put this on, the people put this on. And so literally, it started with an idea in my head to being able to get the entire city to rally around it, to again shut it down. That's why I think Atlanta is such a special place and why these things are still possible.
Adrian.
Well said, B.
Why is Atlanta a special place? I mean, I guess for me, you know, the AJC is like 155, 6, 7 years old, but I can count on my fingers the number of music writers that we've had. There's only been 3, and I know people in this room may know of like Sonia Murray. She was a legendary music reporter here, but I feel like Atlanta, you know, is a cultural melting pot of so many different musical genres, but there aren't many music reporters. And so I think it's my job with the AJC. I'm trying to cover music from a holistic standpoint and ensure like no one is left behind in that. So I think that's part of what makes Atlanta special to me. So.
I think Atlanta is so special because it's a melting pot of alignment. There's not no other place in the nation that you can go through and see so much energy and synergy amongst African Americans. That's one. And amongst African Americans from all over the nation. You'll go downtown or anywhere, even in this room, with so many people that's not from Atlanta, but something brought them here to Atlanta, including myself. I was born here, but raised in Jersey, but I've been back here 20 years, and which allowed me to cultivate a lot of success within the city and change so many different people's lives, including my own, for the upward motion. But Atlanta is success. You know, Atlanta defines synergy. It defines like great ideologies that can really come to fruition. How many times you have an idea, you can be living anywhere else, you'll never get it off the ground. Atlanta is a place for that, so it's very, very special, you know, Atlanta as a whole. So that's my take on it.
Jordan.
Yeah, I love all those answers. I'm gonna go a different angle. I think Atlanta has like 250,000 college students or university students or MBA students. And I think that kind of energy coming in every year, you know, is new blood, is new ideas, new perspectives. And I think what makes great cities great is having a diversity of thought and then being able to apply it. And then what Atlanta does great is it protects itself. So you can't just come in here and do something without tapping some of the right people, or it's not going to be successful. You know, like Atlanta really kind of makes you work, and then once you've proven that you're actually supporting the city or contributing to the city or adding to the ecosystem, then, you know, the people who are the stakeholders kind of adopt you and bring you into the circle. And like, even growing up in New York, I never saw that in that way, where like the whole city is really a community. So I think in that sense, that to me is what makes Atlanta special and creates a place where you can, you know, text the mayor. If you can't text the mayor, you can text Brandon, he can text the mayor, right? You're not texting the mayor of New York, you know, because he also is dealing with not only, you know, the Black community, but he's dealing with the Italian community, the Asian community, the Filipino community, whereas, you know, Atlanta and Fulton County, we've dominated politics as well. So the connectivity from literally the creators in the street to the politics, like there's a place for you to enter, and like that's really special, particularly in the States. particularly in the era we live in now.
Like I've been with y'all your journey from like the beginning, so would love to hear what were like some of the challenges that you went through with like building your brand here in Atlanta, and what do you think the city could have did better to like support you all?
Woo! That's a dangerous one.
Great question.
But I guess I'll just keep talking. First, I want to say, all right, y'all answer the question first. I feel like a lot of what we had to build on our own, and like it takes just having the idea, the creativity, and then the drive to actually do it, and then you have to figure out the resources, and like that takes time, it takes perseverance, it takes talent from wherever you get the talent from, and I don't know if the city always comes to you with open arms unless you're coming through a very specific pipeline, and that pipeline sometimes is super deep because, you know, the mayor, not saying our mayor, but in general, a political figure may have a relationship with, you know, someone else who's a cousin of someone else, and like if you're not in that specific line or you haven't tapped into that, it's very hard to then really get things through. So you end up having to do it yourself, and even when you make it loud, sometimes the city still doesn't see you. I know a lot of people in city government, so I hope I'm not shooting myself in the foot, but when we went overseas, I went to Fame Week this year. So we do a lot of business, a lot of stuff in South Africa, and I was part of the delegacy. Sorry, the delegates that went, and I met so many people who were working with the city on that trip that we lived probably within 5 miles of each other that I just didn't see because we're all in our own orbits. But I think the city recognized how much we were doing overseas because the local community in Cape Town was championing us. You know, like while they were literally speaking, they would stand up and ask questions about why you're not supporting Milk and Cookies here, or why you're not supporting what they're trying to do with the creative exchange, to the point where you couldn't really ignore it. And I already had respect, like I already knew a lot of people, but it didn't really, the actual support beyond the verbal support wasn't really there. And I think we're still, to this day, literally, showing the city like, hey, we are actually, like the stuff you're trying to build, this connection with overseas, we're literally doing it. Literally had the minister of South Africa here yesterday and toured him through, you know, some of the best featured places in Atlanta that we can take him. There's still another minister here right now that we're going to link up with later today, but that's all like through our individual work. It's not like the city has actually come behind it yet. So I think there's a lot of work to do, which is why I think it's probably hard for me to answer that question. But I will say, there's somebody on this panel that used to work in the city government, and I begged her not to leave because I understood how important it was. She worked for the Chamber of Commerce and Invest Atlanta, under that. Oh, my bad. Okay, Invest Atlanta. It's been a long day. And she created a creative exchange program between Atlanta and Canada and selected like 8 delegates, I think, from the entertainment sector to go to Toronto and do an exchange with creatives there. And we got to tour, you know, Spotify Canada, Apple Canada. We spoke at a conference up there, and we built relationships to the point where I was doing business with Canada. I'm still doing business with Canada, particularly in Toronto for like the last 5 years because of that program. So that to me was like the only shining moment where I can be like, the city of Atlanta really stepped in and did this thing to help my career specifically. Other than that, it's still relationship building, but it's just not quite as tangible.
Yep.
I know you be at the city doorsteps every day.
Before we created Atlanta Influences Everything, we were dealing with brands because we felt like brands were taking advantage of Atlanta and its people. And because of how I was raised, I felt like that was a civic issue. And I used to work at a nonprofit called the Center for Civic Innovation, and that's where I learned Civics 101. I learned how to navigate the city, not from an emotional standpoint, but like what all different departments do and who's responsible for what. And it also got the data that Atlanta was #1 in income inequality, while I'm saying we influence everything because of all these great things, but the numbers ain't adding up. The data ain't making sense. Atlanta has the largest gap between the rich and poor in the country. But it also identifies as the Black Mecca. And it doesn't mean that the people on the bottom end are Black, but when you start kind of doing the numbers, it starts to get kind of weird. And then there's Atlanta has a 4% upward mobility rate. So if you're born poor in Atlanta, then there's a 96% chance that you'll die poor. So we out here saying we influence everything, and Atlanta's so Black that it got, as a city, which makes this a civic municipal issue, it almost has Black people problems. So what do they say about us? We look fly, we look cool, we do all this, but if you start checking our bank account, not necessarily under the bed or under the floor, but the actual bank account, that we don't really have no money, that Black people spend their money on frivolous stuff and we really don't have nothing. Well, and from a municipality standpoint, that's what they say about Atlanta. And what will happen? Your rappers will get booked, you'll be booked to perform, but you won't have a seat at the table. We got World Cup, we got Super Bowls, so just like Black people, we're gonna attract dope shit. Black people never lose all the way out. It might look rough, but we make it look pretty. That's Atlanta. So this like duality between culture and politics and how the city is run, the city can't, and it's changing and shape-shifting, but you can't physically build your way out of the Blackness that has become attached to the brand. And so because Black people, we have culture, and that influences everything. We identify as a civic-minded creative agency, but in theory, our belief is that because the letters ATL have agency, it has more agency than the letters STL. No disrespect to anybody from St. Louis, but like the ATL, it does something when you say it. And they've made Adidas for Atlanta. Like we've got corporations putting Atlanta on their product. And they're not doing that because the mayor wanted them to do it. They're not doing that because the Woodruff Art Center is the third largest art center in the country. Adidas don't give a fuck about that shit. Like, pardon my language, yo, like, we need to understand who is carrying the torch. And because the letters ATL have agency, what we realize is that there is no agency guarding those letters. So we have agency to push tourism, and it's not their job to do that. I had to learn that. I got set straight, thanks, Shree. Also, the Metro Atlanta Chamber's job is to have businesses move their companies to Atlanta. So that's not their job. So come to find out, there is no agency telling Atlanta stories, saying the importance of what Milk and Cookies is doing in South Africa. And what I like about the AJC with Asia and what they're doing, they're trying to lean an old 160-something-year-old newspaper in the dirty South toward helping tell those stories that Butter ATL has been doing at a high level. And so to end, what this would look like is Atlanta operates as a city, it negotiates like an influencer. So it don't matter what the World Cup is doing somewhere else, what the Super Bowl is doing somewhere else. It don't matter what you did over there. You're talking to the city that influences everything, right? So therefore, and you can tell we know, but what Atlanta is not doing is not asking. They're not forcing. The mayor's doing a little bit with housing and some things. He's pushing back on corporate and saying, oh, well, you want this, but we need this. And you have to guide that conversation. And we try to, Atlanta is an agency. So if it influences everything, it ought to be able to use the private sector and things coming in and bend the arc of those things to benefit its people, while also helping, like an agency does. An agency solves a problem for a brand. So Atlanta can solve your problem. Atlanta, the city, we can solve your problem. Pay us, and then we rotate that back into our communities. Because the citizens are blessed to be able to live in a city that influences everything. And Atlanta influences everything because of these dope citizens. So what does that ecosystem look like? So I just wish the city would stand on business more. I know we're Southern and we come from agriculture, but we are the home of music now. And the music things, we are moving things, as Jordan said, but if our leaders understood how to deputize the people on stage, that's all it is. Deputize the subject matter experts. Let's go get it.
Appreciate that. And we're gonna wait for the time because we're gonna get up out of here, but jump in, and Brandy.
I don't know if it's like a critique of the city per se, but I know a main challenge for me is sort of like what I mentioned earlier about, Atlanta is globally recognized as a rap capital, but you don't have many rap journalists, rap writers. It's only a handful of us, and so I would say what makes my job harder that I feel like I'm only one person, but I'm covering so many different things at one time, so it makes my job like even more difficult. But I just think that Atlanta needs more musical infrastructure, like compared to what, a Nashville has. And I think a part of that is also having greater investment in music journalism and those who are writing and documenting the culture. So that's my answer.
I think for me, the hardest thing about building Butter was that, like I said, I spent the first half of my career in tech. And, I always kind of joke and say Atlanta has like this weird kiss the ring thing sometimes, or like, you even look like all of us know each other from high school and all this stuff. But, as I kind of started getting more involved in building Butter, the thing that I ran into was I really kind of felt like an outsider. And I felt like that because so much of what Atlanta is known for is related to music and entertainment. And I did not come up in that industry. I came up in business. I came up in the agency space. I came up in corporate. I remember times when I would work with people in the entertainment space. And I remember I had a good friend of mine. I remember I was trying to help him with something. He was like, hey, you're just a corporate dude. What you know about this? But then a couple of years ago, he came and he was like, man, you were right about everything. You know what I mean? Because I was bringing that structure in. But for me, it's funny, like, me and Flower actually talked about this a little while ago, and she was kind of asking me, she was like, how come at certain places I don't see you? And I said, well, I think honestly because Atlanta has a propensity sometimes to lean, I think, a little bit too heavily into rap and entertainment. And the reality is, rappers ain't necessarily our leaders. But the first people we want to go put on a stage in the panel sometimes is a rapper. And we want to go talk about politics and civics and all this stuff. And I get that part, but I think you actually have a lot of people that aren't in that space that are doing the work, and then we over-index on that a lot of times. And so that was the hard part for me, was a person that didn't come up in that. I wasn't an intern at 97.5 back in the day. I wasn't an intern at B103 and all this stuff. I wasn't, and a lot of those people doing amazing, like my boy Maurice Garland, those people do amazing things, but they have that thing in common. I didn't come up. I was an intern at Siemens Energy and Automation up in Alpharetta in the IT security division. I was an intern with Inroads Atlanta, at IBM and like all these other brands. Like I grew up in that corporate side of it. And when I got more involved in the culture, because I didn't have that, that cultural connection to that, so I had to build my own community in the community that I had access to. So that's why I've leaned more into the creative community. That's why I've leaned more into the entrepreneurial community. And what I've been able to do is build respect with people in adjacent communities, which has opened the door up. You know what I mean? But again, like, I met Killer Mike, who's one of my business partners, because he liked one of our posts on Instagram. Not because I knew him from back in the day. And I think so that's been the hardest part for me, and just the work I do with Butter is we very much lean and live in kind of the corporate and business space and the entrepreneurial space, but I feel like we've done very little to tap into that kind of music and entertainment space at the scale that we could, because it's very much, it's very much protected, but at the same time, that's, in my opinion, who the city continues to elevate. And I mean, I'm gonna be able to say that. I feel like we pick the same 5 rappers and y'all put them on everything. Like every time it's a panel, y'all pick the same 5 rappers, and it's like there's more people out there. You know, a lot of rappers, they came up with albums in 15, 20 years. That's a whole different conversation. You know, and I think the city just has to do better. I mean, I love what Jordan said about the talent that comes to ABC, and I kind of joke and say the same thing every year. Like every year you have a whole new group of people coming to Atlanta. Like we can't just rely on, you know, Atlanta from the 90s and Atlanta from the 2000s. Y'all love talking about old Atlanta. That's cool. But old Atlanta is gone, y'all. It's time to, like, there's nothing, I'm not saying get rid of it at all. I'm not saying disregard it, but old Atlanta was 1996 and all that stuff. We're in 2026 now. You know what I mean? And so we gotta also listen to new Atlanta. We gotta listen to the new things, new culture.
Hey, Brandon, where are you from?
Right.
So what
Where are you from?
So I was actually born in Los Angeles, but I moved out here when I was 6 months old, so I'm from the east side, I'm from Stone Mountain. That's another thing about it. Like, even with that, right? Like, I've had people come to me and be like, how you gonna start Butter? You wasn't born at Grady Hospital. It's like, you ain't gotta be a Grady nigga to care about Atlanta. I've been here my whole life. I know Atlanta.
And the reality of that point is, I think it's important, this whole room, is you've been here since you were 6 months old. A lot of us came when we were in our 20s and 30s, and we still claim Atlanta. What's wrong with that? I think that's a really important point, because if we love the city should love us back. All right, I'm gonna move over to Percy.
So let me say this, I want to compliment what you were saying as far as, you know, having these 4 or 5 different rappers, same rappers on the panels. I get what you were saying in a whole, in a macro, right? But I'm gonna tell you, because the education and the genius hasn't been spotlighted in Atlanta. It's so much genius in Atlanta. When you say old Atlanta, we're not talking about the Barancos, African-American millionaires that own 20 dealerships. We're not talking about H.J. Russell, one of the first African-Americans here, so successful, building skyscrapers, owning dozens of acres of land in prominent areas in Atlanta. We're not talking about that. And we haven't made those people the rock stars. We haven't made the rappers the rock stars when Atlanta was built on education. Atlanta was built on forthright, it was built on intention.
And they listen to music too.
So what happens is that when they listen to music, of course, but also understanding that it's more than just the rappers that are cool, right? We don't spotlight the executive enough. We don't spotlight, you know, the one that's at Georgia Tech, that's a professor, the youngest professor. We don't spotlight him, he's African American. We don't spotlight a lot of that. That's the reason why it gets overshadowed. Just a compliment what you were saying, and I get you, you're saying, you know, I'm a tech guy, I'm not in the cliquish. But let me share this with you. Smart kids is cool, smart men is cool, smart women is cool. And I'm gonna tell you this, the pretty women like smart guys, right? I'm sure you can agree with that as well, my pretty women that sit in. You know, give a hand to yourself, you know what I mean, for sure, you know? But respectfully, I just think that it just needs to be highlighted when it comes to education. I'm about higher education, me, myself. I went to Cornell myself, but I did visit a lot of the HBCUs. I visited Morehouse and Clark and different things of that nature. And my mom was like, oh, it looked like a party down here. Oh, no, we're not doing this. But once again, she did that because she wanted me to be in a melting pot, which I can totally respect, because I was able to bring the jewels back here to Atlanta, and then also be able to increase other people's bandwidth in their lifestyles as well too, and provide opportunity. So I think that we need to spotlight education, we need to spotlight forthright, we need to spotlight intention, and that's what will get that popularity going. And the next thing you know, you'll have a panel full of scholars telling you it's cool to be smart. So that's my
And I totally agree with you. And so to piggyback on why Atlanta is so special, because I recognize that. That's why I built my platform on top of Butter, which is called Butternomics. It's the Business of Culture podcast. We're over 100 episodes in. Today I had Fred Blankenship in there. I had Cicely Gay, the chairwoman of Black Lives Matter, in there. I've had Will Packer on there. I've had the mayor on there. But to your point, is because what I'm trying to do is make the business part of culture cool.
Right, I get you.
And I'm just saying is that I'm not up here complaining. I don't think any of us are complaining. I think we're identifying things, but we also say, now Atlanta gives you the ability to go build the solution for that.
Sure.
And so that's what, again, I 100% agree with you, because I saw that not happening. I said, you know what? I'm gonna build my own platform.
Right.
And you know, again, it's always amazing. I get people come to me all the time, like, Brandon, I love it, because I always say this is a tactical podcast, not a motivational podcast. Like, don't come on here talking about believing yourself and try hard. No, what did you do? How did you do it? How do you make the thing happen, right? So again, that's the beauty of Atlanta, is that I have been able now to reach out to some of these people and showcase intelligence on that level. And we really lean into that. So again, I totally agree with you.
Well, you know, they fear, most people fear, most men and women fear what they can't understand. So you always notice like a math problem and you're taking calculus or AP classes when you're growing up. If you don't really know what that says on page 12, you're scared of it. I don't like that class, so it leads to cutting class. It leads to lack of great grades and things of that nature, right? So I think that's the understanding above all, but then let's start spotlighting and being intentional on what we're doing as a people, right? Like, and I say that in Atlanta influences everything. You got Bud, I mean, I've seen Atlanta influences everything everywhere, right? And of course, with me being here outside of Atlanta, though, you know what I mean? That's important. You create a staple. Same thing similar with Cadillac Chronicles. Like, we wanted to continuously film here, even though we film in LA, we film in Miami, we wanted to continuously film here because so many people from the mayor, of course, you guys have probably seen the page with the mayor has been with us, Adrian with the Atlanta cultural affairs as well, you know, and these are things that we've become a magnet because they're like, oh, you guys shoot in Atlanta, we're coming to Atlanta, it's the Mecca. When it comes to it, so yeah, we're gonna have Jill Scott, yeah, we're gonna have Kim, we're gonna have all of the dope artists, but the reason is because they're coming here. They're coming to Atlanta for a reason, it's not just for concerts. This is good living, and not only that, we are solution-based in Atlanta. I don't care where you go, you got a 20, 21, 22-year-old person, they're buying a house. Atlanta, they're not doing that up top. Respectfully, right? Like being solution-based. Oh, you don't have a job? Okay, great, let me create you a company. Let me create you a business. Let me create you an income. Because what I started to realize a lot of years ago, a lot of us, even in the business of music, you know, we were hustling. Don't hustle. Let's get income. It's good to have a hustler mindset. You know, I'm a hustler, I'm gonna move around and do my numbers, for sure. But income is what's important. Because when you look up, income don't hustle. You hustle for the income. And once you set that up, you can go to sleep and wake up as you choose and be a non-meter because you got income, right? You get a check every 2 weeks and you have income, but you have a job. But imagine if you were creating your business as an entrepreneur, you're solution-based. It's all income. It's not hustle. Hustle burns you out.
Can I stop you right there? Because I know we're about to get kicked out of here.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I did have one question I wanted to ask just as a business owner myself. How are you all, and this is for everyone in the room to hear this, because I think we're all in here trying to figure out life. Even if we figured it out, there's another iteration to every single ounce of success in this room. My question would be to all of you. How are you monetizing your brands? What's the next phase of what you're doing as what you're building? I'm curious, is it a larger partnership with private or public sector? I just want to understand, because you mentioned money, and I think it's a really important question. I don't want us to ever be consumed so much in branding that we forget how important the money is.
Right.
Because we're all the kings and queens of culture. But beyond that, how are we eating?
Branding.
Speed round.
Branding.
Speed round.
All day long. I got deals with Cash App, Puma, Nike, Cadillac, General Motors, F1. I mean, I have so many different deals, but what it is that it's branding. That's what monetizes the platform. Cadillac Chronicles is branding. I don't have to charge people $5,000 to get the Cadillac. Why? Because F1 just paid me $100,000 to come for 2 minutes because we built the brand, right? They want that notoriety. They want that alignment. And I spend 60% of my month explaining to Fortune 500 companies how aligning with the culture will increase their bottom line. So that's how we're monetizing. It's all across branding and alignments. And it's going to continuously come. You build it, the bigger you build it. The bigger you build it, the more will come. And you don't have to choose everything. We're very selective on artists, quality over quantity. And the deals that we do, we pick and choose the deals. The deals don't pick and choose us.
Yeah, I'll echo a lot of what he said. A lot of principles we have in Little Cookies follow the same thing. So while we're in a different business, so even when you look at our lineups, when we book talent for our festivals, you'll notice something very similar. Like no one we put on stage is talking derogatory about black people. Too bad, at least. You know, there's no killing black people. Like you're not going to see certain artists on the stage because we know that we have a microphone and we're amplifying you. So if I put you in front of 30,000 people and your message is killing black people, I'm as much of the problem as the person who actually said it, right? So we have a lot of integrity in our brand, and that I found that the brands, we have a lot of integrity in our brand, Little Cookies. The external sponsors, brands, etc., who want to attach to us also recognize that. So we're also very particular about what brands we work with. And what I noticed also, because I also work for Grey Goose, right? The brands who are the partners, the sponsors, they are lagging behind. They're not leading culture. they're always a step behind. They're always looking for what's the thing that curator built, and then how do I attach my brand to that, right? So the key really is to create your own thing, build it properly with your own values, and then the other sponsor money follows that, you know? So that, and then the last thing I'll say is like understanding the drivers of your business. So what I'm doing now for Milk and Cookies, you know, is completely different than what I was doing 10 years ago with the brand. Like now I'm like, okay, so we have a business, we have a festival, but people see that as a platform or a space where people gather, right? So it's really a marketplace. So now I'm dividing up the marketplace into real estate, then I'm selling that real estate. So now when I'm thinking about how I'm speaking to brands to sponsor, I'm looking at it from a completely different lens. So I'll just say to understand whatever your thing is, understand what the actual revenue drivers are. And the same thing now I'm getting to, you know, into the government space because I'm realizing there are grants for some of the other programming that we do. So we do panel conversations, we do community work. There are organizations who want to just support that, who could care less about the festival. You know, so I'm starting to understand our verticals better, and it's making me better at what I do.
Mine would be
TBD.
Mine would be overall the translation of social capital to actual capital. That's theory, you know. I think social capital gets you to a service, but you gotta, you don't pay bills, you gotta figure out how to translate that. More business-wise, understanding the opportunities that have presented themselves with our airport store. One, I guess, World Cup and the Atlanta calendar, but leveraging our airport store, not just to sell our product, but we've been told that we can consign other products in the store. So it's very hard to get into the airport, the world's busiest airport at that. But they, Parodies gave us a list of items that sell, that travelers, I guess you could just think of what you might buy at a store. But they said, what does it look like through you and your friends' eyes? So my friends, you know, things that you can create that you would love to see in the airport that you haven't seen. So we really want to open up the doors for other small businesses. And the last thing I'll say, which is why I want Atlanta, the public sector and private sector in Atlanta to really see what all of us have built in the ground up work and kind of what does meeting halfway look. We've been told by Parodies that we could expand as our brand Atlanta Influences Everything into Dallas and New York. If we were but to, you know what I'm finna say, why would there be an Atlanta Influences Everything shirt in Dallas? There wouldn't be, unless it said Dallas Influences Everything. So we've been presented with the opportunity to just say every city influences everything. And we could, but it would help if my city and the Coca-Colas and more specifically the airport, so Delta stepped in and say, hey, we got your back, bro. Don't sell out.
That's right.
We got that. Let's figure out something. But we are trying to figure out a workaround. But we have to leverage that airport, and us leveraging the airport, we want to hold space for all other small businesses in Atlanta to be able to leverage what we have there as well.
Yeah, 5 minutes left, y'all.
I'll just say real quick, I mean, for me, so I always kind of joke and say I didn't get my MBA from Georgia Tech to run an Instagram page. And so with Butter from the very beginning, I've always thought about revenue, and I've never connected revenue to the number of followers we had. I was doing 6-figure deals when we had less than 10K followers, as I understood how businesses and agencies thought. But right now, in general, my model is I look at Butter now, the current version of it, the current iteration of it, as a launching pad. And what we do now is we specifically launch IP to solve problems that I think exist. So just like my man Verse said, like I saw there was a problem with the business culture and the smart people not getting highlighted, so we created Butternomics. And that now is a revenue model for Butter that allows me to talk and have great conversations, but also generate revenue. I saw that. I felt like the creative, community in Atlanta wasn't getting highlighted, so I created the Creators of Color Conference. And we just had our third year, like I said, we just took over the Fox Theater, State Farm Arena, we had thousands of creatives out, right? And that's another thing. 404 Day is another piece of IP that we co-own with, the rest of the 404 Collective, AIE, and Trap Museum, and Finish First. And so again, like, I kind of look at Butter ATL now as a launching pad, because we have the credibility, and anything that we kind of put out, you can kind of take, and I believe that we can do things for big groups of people with small groups of people. So I'm always just kind of looking for different problems to solve. And then we also have an agency side. We do big activations as well. So we're doing a big activation for FIFA World Cup. But something that's also really interesting that I've actually been putting off for a while, I'll kind of tell you about here in the first place, is one of the things I get asked all the time is, would you ever do a Butter New York or a Butter LA? And I've always said, no, hell no. But I have figured out a model in which something like that could work. And so I'm now having conversations with other cities. We've learned and spin up versions of this in other cities now, which will then tap us into government opportunities. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I would just say for me, I'm not an independent journalist at all. I work for the AJC. So I would just say for any writer or journalist out there trying to build their brand, just be as adaptable as you can. Start that podcast, get on video, like use social media to your advantage. I know the AJC, we have UATL, which is our Black culture brand. We have our own podcast there. I'm one of the co-hosts. I just did an interview, like an on-camera interview with Kenny Burris that went viral. It was on TMZ, Shade Room, whatever. So I think as a journalist or writers, in the room, just be as adaptable as you can to this ever-evolving media landscape. So.
Since the panel is about to end, I just want to say one last thing. This room is amazing. There's some people here. I know a lot of people in this room. Make sure y'all network. I know we're going down the street here in a minute. Mike is going to tell y'all where we're going. But Sophia is, I'm sorry to put you in blast, but Spelman just graduated for the first time. Second valedictorian. Second. And she's one of the second. I want to put that out there because this, like I said, this room, we never know who's in here, but I saw her with a pen and pad out all day, just writing notes, copious notes, and I'm just so proud of how this room has shown up, people who have a real appetite for this knowledge. Let's please invest in the audience too, not just the panelists. Let's invest in everybody in here. I just want to say that.
All right, thank you guys. Give it up for our panelists, and thank you for joining us today.
While they're taking the photo, again, I just want to say thank everyone for this. This